Hey, girlfriend.
Hey, Leslie. What are you wearing?
What do you mean? These are my Manolo Blahniks.
Your Manila alcoholics?
Manolo Blahniks. They're like the hottest shoe right now.
I'm very confused. And are you drinking a cocktail already?
Of course, this is my Cosmopolitan, baby. I always drink these.
It's like 9 in the morning.
So?
Okay, you seem like a little out of your usual self.
Why? What do you mean?
I mean, you should be wearing something other than just shoes. Hang on.
Well, I am in total 2004 mode right now. I think you should come hang out with me here.
Ah, I see. Okay.
This is totally how I would be living in 2004.
I see it now. Let's go then.
Okay. Welcome to Thriving Between the Lines, the podcast that examines personal development books through the lens of intersectionality. I'm life coach and probably a Miranda, Leslie Cruda Villa Garcia.
And I'm Mika, a guy who has never watched Sex and the City.
And together, we're not just reading between the lines, we're thriving between the lines. All right, and today we are coming to you again from Mianjin, or Brisbane, land of the Yagara and Turrbal people, where sovereignty has never been ceded, and it always was, and always will be, Aboriginal land. Now, it's not really 2004, is it?
No, I've grown a bit since then.
I'd like to think I have as well. No, it is...
I mean, actually, I was still a teenager.
Yeah. It's 2024, but it's almost over. It's almost 2025.
It is.
Yeah. But the book we are discussing today is from 2004. Tell us, what is today's book, Mika?
He's Just Not That Into You, The No Excuses Truth to Understanding Guys, by Greg Behrendt and Liz Tuccillo.
Yes, it's an expression that many of us have either heard or said to ourselves or other people. Now, Mika, what was happening in your life back in 2004?
I was a teenager, and I think the first half of 2004, I was traveling Europe in a dodgy camper van with my family. It was a good time. I enjoyed that part of life. But, yeah, teenager, certainly not reading books about if guys are into me or not.
Yeah, in 2004, I was fresh off of travels through Europe, which is kind of funny. I had this very life-transforming solo trip around Europe for a few months. Went back home to the States, had some conversations with friends that led to me moving to New York City. So 2004 was my first year living in New York City.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Really living the Sex and the City life.
Yeah, I hadn't actually seen the show at all at that point, but this took me right back to that time in my life, which was just so funny. But a few other things were happening just in the world that were notable during that time as well. That was also the year that the final episode of Sex and the City aired. That was also the year of the famous wardrobe malfunction at the Super Bowl with Janet Jackson.
Okay, yeah.
And probably most importantly for this context is that was the year Facebook was launched. Yeah.
Yep.
So we're talking about a dating book that's 20 years old. A time before social media, a time before smartphones, before swiping left and right on people you think are cute or not so cute. It was a very, very different time.
Oh, yeah. Oh, most important thing about the 2000s, though,
What?
Mika, the singer, was very popular, and as a little closeted trans boy, I was just like, my nickname is a boy's name.
Was that 2004? I thought he was kind of a little bit later than that. Or maybe I was just not listening to music at the time.
I feel like it was that. I was like 13 or 14, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Maybe I was slightly older. It all blends in.
The 2000s. That first decade.
Yep.
Let's talk a little bit about the author of this book. So the main author is this Greg Behrendt guy.
Yep.
Right? His writing partner, Liz, does chime in specifically with her perspectives, but a lot of it is reflecting on what Greg has said.
Yeah. A bit like me on this podcast.
So I'm the Greg Behrendt of the show.
Yeah.
I have to say, I don't really have any interest in hating on Greg Behrendt, right? Because Greg Behrendt isn't necessarily one of the first names that comes to mind nowadays when you think about relationships and dating, right?
Yeah.
Greg Behrendt is a comedian.
Yeah.
And we need to consider that as we discuss the different points in this book. The fact that he was also a consultant on Sex and the City, which is why we've brought it up already in this podcast, and it comes up a lot in the book. He was a consultant that was giving the perspective of a straight male to a writer's room that was mainly women and gay men.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's the reverse of what normally happens.
Yeah, so it's like, let me give you a guy's perspective. If you compare what he's saying about relationships, dating, women, men at that time in this book, compared to now, what has become popularized in the manosphere, in this very, very, very patriarchal, very, like, weirdly conservative. I say weirdly conservative because some of the people spouting off these things, like, they're not exactly the most straight-laced people. They just have really right-wing, really bigoted views about how men should behave and how women should behave and how men are so much more superior to women.
Very selective conservatism.
Yes. Yeah, that's precisely it. When you compare today's rhetoric with what he's writing in this book from 2004, totally different things.
Yeah.
Kind of refreshing. That's not to say that everything in this book is great, because it's not. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking about it on the podcast.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But the other thing to note about Greg Behrendt today is that even though at that time in his career, he was just like wildly popular, doing lots of like specials on TV. He had his own talk show for a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the Greg Behrendt Show. It seems like a lot of what he's focusing on now is largely out of this like crazy public eye thing, which is cool. It's like, awesome. Not everyone has to be plastering themselves everywhere onto everything. I was scrolling through his Instagram. He's got something like just over 8,000 followers on Instagram.
Yeah.
And a lot of his content seems focused on his relationship with other comedians and his comedy career. He also apparently does some relationship coaching and life coaching. Yeah.
Interesting transition in career.
Yeah. I mean, he seems like he's just a dude doing his thing, enjoying life right now. Right?
Yep.
At least that's what I hope. I hope he's enjoying life. Whereas a lot of these, like, I'm going to teach you everything because I know everything types are just like...
Sitting in jail.
Or they're just plastering themselves everywhere. They're painting themselves as these gurus.
Yeah.
And they're influencing a lot of young men and women. And I'm speaking in very binary terms in that regard, because that is who they're talking to.
Yes.
Saying things that are just very damaging and very disempowering.
Yep.
Ironically disempowering.
Yeah, it's kind of the opposite of intersectional feminism. It's
Yeah.
kind of like, unless you fit this very narrow view of who I think is acceptable in the world, everyone else is terrible and not valid.
Yeah. And they're not trying to be funny about it either.
No.
No. So when they say things that seem like they're talking down to women, for example, they are actually talking down to women,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But none of this changes the fact that personal development books, dating books, from whatever time they come, can still have a huge influence on how people operate in today's contexts.
Yeah.
So we're going to discuss some of the ideas in this book that might not necessarily fit in 2024 for cultural reasons, for intersectional reasons, so that anyone out there who is still hearing these messages might scrutinize them a little bit differently.
20 years is a long time.
It is a long time. That's a whole ass child.
Yeah. If you think of the 40s and the 60s, the big difference in the way the world was culturally.
And a lot of these ideas, they just need to be updated. They just need to be updated.
Yeah.
But a lot of times updating these things is a better way of serving like marginalized communities in a way that more privileged communities tend to see as a threat.
Yes.
And it's like, well, sorry. I mean, if you feel threatened, that's great. Welcome to our lives.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. So overall, not all of the advice in this book is terrible, which is great.
Yeah.
A refreshing change from some things I've read. A lot of it is actually really good advice.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. But, again, Leslie's big butt.
You cannot lie.
It's good advice if you're applying it to a very narrow group of people.
Yeah. And it's okay to write a book for certain people,
Yeah.
but there aren't always books for the people that it's not written for.
Exactly. This book doesn't make any room for people who are queer, for people who are neurodivergent. It just doesn't leave room for any of that.
Yeah.
It's really pitched at this aspirational Sex and the City vibe kind of crowd. So I'm just going to read some bits at you, and you tell me what you think.
Yep.
He's just not that into you if he's not asking you out. Thoughts?
Maybe.
Okay.
I am not a men have to ask women out every time sort of person.
Oh, then you'd hate this book.
Yeah. Like, I am a bit oblivious sometimes, and I also don't want to make women uncomfortable by, like, sexualizing women at every turn. But there's certainly times where I'm probably like, oh yeah, like, she's cute, but I'm not getting any vibes, so I'm not going to, like, go there. And then, but if, like, she showed interest, then I'm a bit oblivious. I might not notice the subtle stuff unless someone's kind of like, hey, you're cute. Like, it's not that I'm not into someone. It's that I try and keep a very, like, a barrier between whether it's going to turn into something romantic or whether it's staying as platonic.
Oh, well, then I have to read this bit to you, okay? The format of the book is such that it includes a lot of these little notes to Greg. I don't know if these are actually real notes. I'm sure a lot of them aren't. Because he lists a number of excuses, right? One of them is the maybe he doesn't want to ruin the friendship excuse.
But it's real.
Well, let me read you this note. It starts, Dear Greg, I'm so disappointed. I have this friend that I've known platonically for about 10 years. He lives in a different city, and recently he was in town for work, so we met for dinner. All of a sudden it felt like we were on a date. He was completely flirting with me. He even said to me, as he was checking me out, So, what, you're working this whole model thing now? That's his voice in my head. That's flirting, right? We both agreed that we should get together again soon. Well, Greg, I'm disappointed because it's been 2 weeks and he hasn't called me. Can I call him? He might be nervous about turning the friendship into romance. Can't I give him a nudge now? Isn't that what friends are for? Jody. Just tell me what you think of his response, Mika.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to decide what his voice sounds like in my head today. So forgive me if I can't quite commit. Dear friendly girl, 2 weeks is 2 weeks, except when it's 10 years and 2 weeks. That's how long ago he decided whether or not he could date a model or a girl who looks like one. Can he be a pal and give him a nudge? Nudge away, Friendster. Oh, Friendster. That was a whole social media. Never mind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember Friendster?
I mean, I heard of it.
You know, you could. Yeah. My login still works on Friendster.
What?
I know. Anyway, ADHD moment. Nudge away, Friendster. But watch how fast that nudge doesn't get a return phone call. And if your dinner/date did feel different to him, it's been 2 weeks and he's had time to think about it and decide he's just not that into you. Here's the truth. Guys don't mind messing up a friendship if it could lead to sex, whether it be a fuck buddy situation or your face or a meaningful romance. Go find someone that lives in your zip code who will be rocked to the core by your deep conversation and model looks.
So men can't have friendships with women that they find attractive as well?
Well, I mean, possibly, but this is what he's saying, that like maybe he just does want to be friends and he's really just not that into you, because if he were into you, he wouldn't care about risking the friendship.
I mean, I think that mature adults should be able to be like, hey, I could be interested in this, and if they're like, that's not what I want, you can be like, cool, no problem, let's keep it as friends. But unfortunately, that's not how it goes a lot with people. They then become uncomfortable around you if you've shown interest like that.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, now you're like checking me out all the time.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, I'm an adult. I can like regulate my emotions.
Yeah. That said, in this example, 2 weeks is a while for some people.
Yeah.
I personally wouldn't wait around 2 weeks to find out if someone was going to call me back and then still wonder and wonder and wonder. I say that. I don't know if that's completely true, but I'm also polyamorous, and we have a completely different way of operating in relationships, don't we?
Yes.
Yeah.
I also wouldn't leave it 2 weeks after catching up with anyone to like just follow up and be like, hey, that was fun, let's do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. So the time between this contact, I think, is valid, but this whole idea that if a guy is into you, he doesn't care about the friendship.
Yeah, that's the bit I find offensive.
That's the bit that's like, I don't know. But he has statistics and surveys that he turns to, right? Do you know much about the sample size of the people that he questioned to compile his data?
I mean, did he declare how he got his sample size?
No. And this is part of the problem. A lot of what he presents as the reason he's qualified to talk about this is, hey, I'm a guy, so I know what guys want. It's like, that doesn't work. It didn't work in 2004. It doesn't work now, because everyone is different. People's contexts are different. People's attachment styles are different. People have gone through different traumas.
Yes.
That can affect the way they show interest in someone.
They might be neurodivergent.
Exactly. Or
like, I shared all of my favorite interests with you. How did you not realize I was into you?
I showed you my favorite shiny rock.
Exactly.
That means something.
It could be too that that guy knew over those past 10 years that he didn't have the appropriate emotional resources to be a good partner. or like there's lots of reasons not to pursue a relationship even with someone you kind of might have a good, be into. But you shouldn't go into a relationship just because you want it. Like, if you can't be fair to that other person, you shouldn't go for it. So,
Yeah. And a lot of people don't necessarily have the forethought to self-select out of the dating pool until they can figure themselves out, which can also be a problem because a lot of people are like, oh, no, this person that I'm dating, they're going to be part of my healing journey. They're going to be part of my personal development. They're going to help fix me. And it's like, no, you're not emotionally available right now.
Yeah.
But that's also where I take issue with a lot of the messaging in this book, where it's, look, guys are just like this. Women, you just gotta be smarter. Like, come on, silly women. You silly woman. You silly little girl. Like, come on. On one hand, he says these things like, you are amazing. You are worth someone wanting to be with you. You are excellent and you're awesome, but you're also stupid. It's like, like, which voice are you using here, man? He's hooked on this idea that if you're interested in a guy, he has to call you first. There is just no excuse for it being the other way around. It's just that simple. There's this, in these letters to Greg that are peppered throughout this book, one of the characters that repeatedly appears is one called Nikki, who I'm sure isn't a real person, but...
And they might be amalgamations.
Yeah. But just pay attention to how he responds to Nikki here. First, this is in the chapter, he's just not that into you if he's not calling you. All right? So one of the excuses that is listed here is the maybe I don't want to play games excuse for why a woman should be allowed to call a guy she's interested in. All right, so Nikki writes, Dear Greg, this is dumb. I know you're not supposed to call guys, but I call guys all the time because I don't care. I don't want to play games. I do whatever I want! Exclamation. I've called guys tons of times. You're such a square, Greg. Why do you...
Yes, queen.
Nice. Why do you think we can't call guys and ask them out? Signed, Nikki. Here's his response. Dear Nikki, because we don't like it. Okay, some guys might like it, but they're just lazy. And who wants to go out with lazy guy? It's that simple. Is it really, though? I don't think so. Okay. I didn't make the rules, and I might not even agree with them. Really? Because it sounds... Anyway. Please don't be mad at me, Nikki. I'm not advocating that women go back to the Stone Age. I just think you might want to be realistic in how capable you are of changing the primordial impulses that drive all of human nature. Or maybe you're the chosen one. Like, how sarcastic is that?
Yeah, don't like that, says Greg.
Yeah, no. It's like, dude, come on.
Like, if you do actions to uphold the status quo, you are doing everything you can to keep it. Like, if you don't agree with it, fight the system. Be like, if a man is too delicate to be able to deal with a woman calling him, he's probably going to be a bit of a misogynist douchebag anyway.
When I read this, it took me right back to our discussion about The Way of the Superior Man by David Data.
Yeah.
It's like, no, this is just how we're wired. This is all this stuff about the masculine, the feminine polarity and this and that. And like, it has to be this way. It has to be that way. It's like, says who? I want to know.
And it just, to me, looking 20 years later, there are so many men that have grown up to be way better at sharing the roles in society with women.
Yeah.
Like, we don't immediately assume a man's going to pay for a meal anymore, or that a guy's going to do the asking out,
Yeah.
particularly in regards to trying to give women their own autonomy and make sure that women feel more comfortable in situations too. Like, men try to be a bit, I would say, like good men, try to be a bit more understanding of the fact that a woman's not always looking to be hit on at every turn.
Yeah. And there is a such thing as getting to know someone before you determine whether your interest is enough to then kind of take it to a different level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think the term pansexual or anything existed back then, or demisexual.
It certainly wasn't in the common vernacular.
Yeah.
But I love that he brings up changing the primordial impulses that drive all of human nature in a conversation about phone calls. You know, back in the Stone Age, when I'm picturing like a Flintstones phone, you know, it's like you're talking into the mouth of one of those birds with the big mouths. I don't know.
A toucan.
Okay, cool. Whichever. Just take my word for it. I have made a quality joke.
Yes.
It has landed. We have rejoiced. Okay. So, each chapter also contains a section called It's So Simple, where Greg talks to us even more like we're children to just reiterate what's being illustrated in his communication with these people who are writing to him. So here he writes, "It's so simple. Imagine right now that I'm leaping up and down and shaking my fist at the sky. I'm on my knees pleading with you. I'm saying this in a loud voice. Please, if you can trust one thing I say in this book, let it be this. When it comes to men, deal with us as we are, not how you'd like us to be. I know it's an infuriating concept that men like to chase, and you have to just let us chase you. I know. It's insulting. It's frustrating. It's unfortunately the truth. My belief is that if you have to be the aggressor, if you have to pursue, if you have to do the asking out, 9 times out of 10, he's just not that into you." Oh, but this is where he, tries to dress the wound he's creating. "And we want you to believe you're one of the 9 ladies. I can't say it loud enough. You, the super fox reading this book, are worth asking out." It's like, okay, do you like us or do you not like us? It's like he's trying to play the, like, you go, girl, but you're also kind of stupid in a way that just doesn't hold up in 2024.
Yeah, it's very patriarchal. And I think it's a little bit that kind of like, oh, you should step up, but we shouldn't have to step down.
Yeah.
Like, trying to kind of, I'm going to maintain my position while also telling you to, like, come up here.
Yeah. It's like our discussion about the 5 love languages, right? Where it's like, no, this is just how the men are. It's like the woman comes to the author with a concern, with a complaint related to the relationship, and it's like, what you need to understand is that your husband is that's just how he is. So now you're the one who needs to change your behavior so he'll respect you more.
Yes. Like, having any expectation on men to change is unreasonable.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, maybe it is better to be alone forever if you can't find a mature, decent man that can actually, like, change and regulate their behaviors.
Yeah. But it also doesn't paint a very optimistic picture of men either.
Exactly.
It's like, sorry, but I know loads of men who are very well-rounded individuals. They're not these flat 2-dimensional characters that are just one way and that's it.
Yes. And this is what gives that bad name to, like, cishet men.
Yeah.
It's like holding up this idea that men are like this and can't change. It's insulting to men as well.
Yeah. It's like these silly, simple creatures.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't believe that all cishet men are these silly, simple creatures that we just have to baby all the time. I don't believe that. There are people who are like that across the gender spectrum, first of all. I don't like that cisgender straight men tend to get a lot more of a pass for being that way in some contexts that can be very damaging to other people.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a whole other conversation. But it's like, no. Boys will be boys.
Yep.
You just let them be. You just let them do whatever they want. You're the one who has to change. It's like, yeah, don't think so.
Boys will be boys, but, like, a woman's like a crazy bitch or something.
Yeah.
If she is of the same personality type.
Yeah. It's like, And that's not to say that we should go into a dating scenario expecting that we can change someone. A lot of people, I say people because this is not unique to one gender, a lot of people have this idea that they can enter into a relationship, they can kind of lock it down a bit, and then they can do things to change the other person's behavior. It's like, do you like this person or do you not? Why are you trying to change them?
Yeah, no, that's a huge red flag on that side.
Yeah.
Because people cannot change unless they want to change.
Yeah.
And, I mean, even if someone's saying they want to change, I'm kind of like, you go do that work and we'll talk later.
Yes. Now, Mika, agree or disagree? He's just not that into you if he's not having sex with you. In the context of, like, someone you are actively dating. What do you think?
I mean, it's ace-erasure.
Please explain to our audience what you mean by that.
Well, there's been asexual men and women forever. We just kind of have made excuses or pretended like they don't exist.
Yep.
For most of history. And it's certainly reasonable that if you want sex in a relationship and they don't want sex in a relationship, then you might not be compatible. But that doesn't mean they're not into you. They might love you deeply.
Yeah.
And that's just not something that they want actively or even are repulsed by.
Yeah.
So it's not a very good, I wouldn't say it's a very good way to judge that. If they've had a change in their sexual behavior, maybe it's a good thing to bring up and ask about that, and maybe they're struggling. It could be anything from, like, they're having mental health struggles, and it would be nice for you as a partner to ask them about it. But yeah, it's not it's not a measure of love.
Yeah. There is this persistent idea that, like, and I mean, I've been on the other side of this, and it can be really frustrating when you're with someone and it seems like they're interested, but they haven't made any sexual advances, and it makes you wonder, like, well, what does it mean? Does it mean that they're not attracted to me? Like, in other areas, it seems like we're having a great time, but there is a letter in here that reflects a similar situation, so let me read it to you. Dear Greg, I had a boyfriend 10 years ago. I bumped into him on the street recently after not having seen him for many years, and we started, quote-unquote, dating again, even though it is unclear if that's exactly what's going on. He won't kiss me or make a pass at me, but Greg, we're going salsa dancing, we're going bar hopping, we're staying out late, talking and dancing and laughing and flirting. He keeps telling me how great I look, how great it is to see me. One night he even told me he loved me and hoped I'd always be in his life. My friends all say he's just afraid to get hurt again, and I should stick this one out. He's a great guy. Doesn't he seem really into me, but he's scared? Salsa dancing, Greg, till 4 a.m. Salsa dancing. Please advise. Signed, Nicole. I'll read you his reply. Hey, Salsa. I'm a dude. If I like you, I kiss you. And then I think about what you look like in and out of your underwear. I'm a guy. That's how it works. No ifs, no ands, and clearly no buts. Is he scared? Yes, he's scared of hurting your feelings. That's why he hasn't clarified the relationship. He may even be biding his time, hoping he will develop deeper feelings for you. When this dude tells you he loves you and that he hopes you never lose touch again, he may as well be signing your yearbook. He loves you as a friend. If he were in love with you, he wouldn't be able to help himself from getting involved in a romantic relationship regardless of his fear or past experiences. I say, move on. Go meet someone more worthy of your affections and hot salsa moves. Thoughts?
My first thought is, he's gay. But that's, like, terrible.
Oh, wow. Wow. Okay.
Because, like, I can see in my head, like, like back in the 2000s, the closeted gay men looking for a beard that's going to suit them.
Yep.
Beard being a woman that a gay man dates or marries to cover all those bases.
Yes.
But also, he could just be a timid guy. Like,
Yeah.
he's like doing the romantic things, but doesn't want to come across as a creep. And there was all sorts of discussions, you know, there still is, on like what number date is appropriate to make a move. And
Yep.
like, she didn't specifically say how many of those dates had been. But I have to say, if I had been salsa dancing till 4 a.m., I certainly, on a few dates in, would have been making a move. Yeah, you can't tell unless you're actually there and get the vibe. Who knows? Maybe she puts off, like, don't touch me vibes, or, well, obviously not, but, like, puts off vibes that he's just, like, not feeling that it would be the right time to make a move for more physical intimacy. Particularly if she's overthinking stuff so much, like, that does sometimes come across as, like, nervousness or discomfort.
Yeah. And you've pointed to something really important there. Something important that's missing from this book is, in these contexts where the women are interacting with these men that they're interested in, what vibe are they giving off in those moments? Because at once, the author says, you are fabulous, you are incredible, you are amazing, but you're also kind of stupid. And then we're not getting any information about how this communication is actually happening. It's just, you just continue to be amazing, and he will then step up. And anything else is just not going to work in the long run. But I think it's so funny that you just that you had that initial reaction of like, oh, it sounds like this guy's gay, right? Because who knows? Maybe that's the case. But this also sounds a lot like how my relationship with Tony started.
A lot of back and forward.
Well, this is the thing, right? I was wondering and wondering and wondering a lot about where I stood with Tony, about how they felt about me, in ways that, yes, at times were incredibly frustrating. According to Greg Behrendt's rules and a lot of popular dating rules of the time, I was supposed to walk away. I was supposed to give up. I was supposed to say, nah, he's just not that into me. Like, oh, this person should be chasing me. Otherwise, this is completely invalid.
Yeah.
I was supposed to cut and run. And I'll tell you what, at one point, I almost did. In the end, I'm glad I didn't, for a number of reasons. We've got this amazing relationship with this person. We've got an 8-year-old daughter. We've got this great relationship, But also the things that were going on for me at that time, I didn't know I had PMDD, for one thing.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things I was trying to work out in my mental health that made me second guess things, that made me hyper vigilant about certain behaviors, that made me more rejection sensitive. I wasn't this grand beacon of communication just waiting to be pursued. That's not to say that I'm not, and I don't say this to talk down about myself at all. I'm saying that, like, it goes both ways in any kind of dynamic with two people, where sometimes people aren't always going to be at their peak condition, ready to give and receive with perfect communication in a way that you can then go like, well, this is me. I'm fabulous. If they're not pursuing me the way they're supposed to be, that's it. They're not worth my time.
It actually reminds me of a lot of discussions I've had with people, like some women who struggle with dating, and that I've kind of tried to point out that, like, when you have certain, like, doubts and they're so worried and they're so anxious about dating and if it's going to happen or not, and like the vibe it gives off is really either confusing and sometimes even a bit off-putting in a way that you're so focused on relationship, you're not focusing on being you and shining out that stuff that makes you really cool and really fun to be around.
Yeah.
And so, like, they might be into you because they see glances of that when you're not obsessing over the dating side of things.
Yes.
But as soon as some people I know get into this obsession thought patterns of dating and relationships and, are we going to get married and have babies? And, like, it's like, slow down, live in the moment, be yourself, and work on just, like, having a nice time with someone and communicating. And that can be, like, part of the issue there, that mixed signals. Yeah.
The communication aspect is crucial. This book is very much about behaviors. It's not about communication.
Yeah.
It does mention the value of communicating every now and then, but it focuses strongly on the behaviors and the reactions to those behaviors. And that's where it's way too overly simplistic. It's too overly simplistic, and there are so many people that still adhere so strongly to these rules. And when I say rules like that with my air quotes voice, it's because at the end of the book, there's related reading, recommended reading, and an order form. The books. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
Lol, that's something I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, it is. And I lulled on the inside when he did that. The Complete Book of Rules by Ellen Fine and Sherry Schneider.
I don't know that one.
It is hilarious. I mean, well, it's not a comedy book, but it's a book that took the dating world by storm. It was one of these that's like rules for women relating to date. It's like, you never call him because he's supposed to call you. You know, you always do this. You never accept a date like a date for a Friday later than a Wednesday. And it's all about playing games. It's all about, you know, these simple men. And it's
no room for individuality or anything.
No. And again, it's about behaviors and not communication.
Makes me think of Seinfeld.
Oh, well, yeah. And in this section, where there's such a focus on sex and what the initiation of sex means in a relationship, it really invalidates the experiences of people whose libido is impacted by various things. But here's another letter under the multiple excuses excuse. Dear Greg, my boyfriend of a year and a half doesn't seem attracted to me. He doesn't want to have sex that often, maybe once every other week. Often, I have to initiate it. When I ask him about it, he tells me that he's really stressed about work, but that he really is attracted to me. Before that, he told me it was because his mother had recently died and he was too depressed. But when I really think about it, it's been pretty much like this ever since we met. Maybe for the first couple of weeks, I felt like he thought I was hot, but since then, he has never really seemed that into me physically. I love him, and it's the most loving and healthy relationship in every other way, but now I spend a lot of time feeling frustrated and unattractive. My friends say I should believe what he's saying, but I'm starting to feel like he's just not that into me, physically. Signed, Dara. So, mind you, her friends say she should believe what he's saying. Now, what does this guy Greg say? This non-friend Greg. He writes, Dear, let's get physical. If I'm really into somebody, I want to put it in them, and then take it out, and then put it back in them later on. So when we're picking someone who we want to spend a lot of time with, even perhaps the rest of our lives, we generally try to pick someone who likes to do the things we like to do, including, if not especially, sex. You can accept his excuses all you want, but you have to ask yourself, is this the relationship you want to be in? If this is how you want to live the rest of your sex life, or is this how you want to live the rest of your sex life? He may be into you, he may not, but the only thing you have to answer is this how you want to feel? Perhaps forever? Now, this is another situation where there's some really shitty stuff marbling in amongst some less shitty stuff. But it's like, ew. And let's not forget that one of the concerns that this guy had was that his mother had passed away.
Yeah. And
but to Greg, that doesn't that he's still hard.
Like, people react differently. Like, some people when they're stressed are like, oh yeah, sex will distract me and this will be great. Some people, like, it just kills your libido.
Yeah.
If they have like a really intense job where they do 80 hours a week, like, they don't have time to be horny.
Yeah.
Or if they do, you got to do an express, like, get it done and dusted, which you don't really want to, like, use a partner for.
Yeah.
It's not on that side, it's not fair to say that's what the guy is doing, that he's not attracted. But also, like, if that's not the sort of relationship that works for her, that's also fair. But she needs to decide whether she can be in a relationship with such irregular intimacy or not. That's the only question, is like, what can you do, or what is your part to play? Not trying to interpret their intentions.
Yeah. And this is again where communication should be at the forefront of all of this.
Yes.
Not once is he saying, ask your partner about this, or, create an environment where you can be vulnerable with each other or anything like that. He's saying, hey, the guy doesn't want to have sex with you. Everyone who's into someone wants to have sex with them. And he says it in quite a crude way, also.
The way he said it is just really off-putting.
Yeah. And it's also another example of this, like, hey, boys will be boys. And if they like you, they'll want to have sex with you. And you just have to accept that. It's like, that is actually creepy as fuck.
Yes.
You know? Oh. Yeah.
Putting men all in one basket like that is as much of a disservice to men as it is to women. It's kind of a very good example of how misogyny and, like, patriarchal ideas damage men as well.
Yeah.
Which, we might get the power, but there is also some pretty big downsides, especially emotionally, to men in this system.
Yes.
And it is important to be compassionate to men on that side of, like, they are being damaged as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have far, far more of the power and opportunity to change the system. But emotionally damaged people are pretty shit at seeing a pathway out.
Yeah. Because he continues in his "It's so simple" section for this. He says, "It's so simple. Learn it, live it, like it, love it. If a man likes you, he's going to want to have sex with you. Sure, things may slow down in a long-term relationship, but even then, it's a joy, a gift, and your right to have a fantastic sex life." That sounds like a license for predatory behavior as well. I don't disagree with the fact that, like, if your sexual relationship and sexual activity is really important to you and it's something you're not getting out of your relationship and you are communicating around that, if you've exhausted all other options and it's still not happening and it means that much to you, exit the relationship, end the relationship. I think that's pretty solid, but this is like skipping steps A, B, C, and D and jumping straight to LMNOP.
I do hate the whole... Back then, I was a teenager, so I assumed it was just teenageness, but this sounds exactly the same. Like, the assuming, guessing everyone's mindset, like, everyone had to just play the guessing what people are thinking bullshit when it came to relationships.
Yeah.
That to question it or to have open communication was like, oh, well, clearly it's a failed relationship or not a good relationship if you have to go to counseling or, like,
Yeah.
use words.
If you loved me, you would just know what I need. And you would just know how to talk to me. You would just know what to do.
That crap.
It's like, okay, autistic people, for example.
Yes.
How do autistic people operate in these situations? Are autistic people not entitled or not deserving of healthy, loving relationships because they can't just, or because we can't just read people's minds?
Yes. And to tell you the truth, in my experience, when I just was autistic me and still presenting female and would just kind of say what I was thinking, people loved it. They were just like, oh, thank goodness you're not making me have to guess.
Yeah. And this is something that I've said on a number of first dates, that I don't like having to guess. I don't like mixed signals. I don't wait around for signs that someone's interested in me.
Yeah.
I just don't. And it's not even just because, I'm worshiping at the altar of the "he's just not that into you" ethos. It's because my brain won't allow it. My brain's going to be like, no, we don't have enough space for these guessing games. You've got way too much else happening.
Yeah.
You got to move on.
It could be, too, as I said, in the reverse, that they are so up in their head, overthinking everything and unsure in themselves, and that's where the mixed signals are coming from. But also I know for myself that's not someone that's going to suit me as a partner at this point in my life. It's going to just be a very exhausting time trying to communicate with them.
Yeah.
I need to remember that I'm coming from an autistic perspective. So I'm sure other people don't have the same needs as I do. But I just need things said straight because I have I think that I have had autistic burnout for a long time just because of trying to live the way I was told I was supposed to.
Yeah.
And now one of my things is, you're going to have to tell me what you are thinking or want. I can't guess. I'm not going to see every piece of body language.
Yeah.
If you can't do that, That's fine. We don't need to be compatible.
Yeah. Clarity is kindness. I don't like being tested because more often than not I will fail. And it's not because I'm a bad person. It's because I'm not a bloody mind reader.
If people do a relationship test on me, like, done.
Yeah.
They failed my test.
Yeah. Oh, 1000%, brother.
That's a TikTok trend that needs to die.
Yeah. Oh gosh, what like the orange peel thing and all these other relationship tests. It's like, stop testing each other and start talking to each other. All right. More adventures in oversimplification, especially when it comes to gender roles and monogamy. All right, here we go. He's just not that into you if he's having sex with someone else. There's never going to be a good excuse for cheating. All right. Okay. I don't disagree with that.
If it's cheating.
Yeah, if it's cheating. But this is how he starts. If he cheats on you, throw the deadbeat out. Just kidding. I know things aren't that simple. Do you though? Do you though? Because up until this point, up until chapter 5 of this book, it sounds like there's a lot of oversimplification happening here.
Yeah.
But he continues, this is a very complicated subject, I'll admit. Some will argue, it's just sex. What does it matter? Some will argue that you shouldn't throw away a meaningful relationship just because of one indiscretion. This all may be true, but this is what I know. Whatever problems you may have been having in your relationship, they didn't merit him having sex with someone else. Okay. And look, he continues this chapter in a way that does offer more reverence to the female reader. It recognizes that it's no good to play these games of like, oh, but all men cheat. It's not a big deal, blah, 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 blah. It's like, if your agreement, and again, speaking as two polyamorous individuals with different ideas about monogamy that have clearly defined ideas about what is and isn't cheating, in that the cheating is a break in your agreement. It's not about whether or not you're sleeping with other people. It's about what the people involved in those dynamics have agreed upon, and the boundaries that they've expressed. Different people have different ideas of what cheating is. Whatever you agree that cheating is what cheating is. So he writes things like, don't ask what you did wrong, don't share the blame, and in case he tells you that it just happened, please remember, cheating doesn't just happen. It's not an accident, as in, oops, I just slipped and fell into a sexual relationship with someone else. It was planned and executed with the full knowledge that it could end your relationship. Okay, good. We're not giving people a pass for cheating, but the way in which he talks about cheating in specific contexts is still quite condescending. And that's where it's like, oh, Greg, buddy. So in the letter in this section, this person writes, Dear Greg, I've been living with my boyfriend for a year. I recently found out that about a month ago he slept with someone he worked with, twice. The girl told me at a party. I confronted my boyfriend and he confessed. I packed my things and moved to a friend's. He's now calling me constantly, begging me to give him a second chance. He says he doesn't know why he did it, but promises he'll never do it again. He really feels bad about it. What should I do? Signed, Fiona. Now this is his response. Dear, a month ago. Let's see. He slept with someone else while he was living with you, and you only found out because the girl told you about it. Sounds like a winner. When's the wedding? Seriously, let's talk about that special month in your home. In that month, he had sex with someone else twice, came back and slept in the same bed with you. He was actively hiding this secret from you every time he looked into your eyes. And let's remember, this gentleman didn't confess by his own volition. Skanky the homewrecker did it for him. So if he had his way, this lovely month of dishonesty would have turned into 2 months, 3 months, forever. Do all his apologies count for something? Well, you can choose to believe he is sorry. You can choose to believe he will change. But in my book, lying, cheating, hiding is the exact opposite of the behavior of a man who's really into you. Again, it's like, that is my journey through that response.
Because I'm like, yes, exactly. The lying is where it became, to me, an unforgivable offense.
Yes.
I do have some compassion for people who have lived in a society that says monogamy is the only acceptable form of physical interactions. And that I can see how someone might have, fall into a situation like that.
I slipped on a banana peel naked.
I do think that it's a pretty bad excuse to not hold yourself back. But anyway, you can, if someone comes to you straight away going, I made this terrible mistake, I'm so sorry, what can I do? That's totally different to hiding it and lying to you and sexually interacting with you after having, like, to me, once you're crossing that boundary of, like, your consent to the sexual relationship is based on it being a monogamous one.
Yep.
As soon as you break that, that's like a whole other thing of, like, breaking the consent of the sexual relationship.
Yes.
And in that case, I am pretty much in a, go. Like, if someone can lie to you for that long, like, I'm pretty, like, cutthroat with that stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I hate how he calls this other woman Skanky the homewrecker.
That was the bit that I was like, oh, no, you lost me.
Yeah, yeah.
We don't even know if she knew he was married at this point in the story either.
Yeah, boyfriend, yeah. No,
in a relationship.
Yeah, like, we know nothing about this other woman, but we're still insulting her.
Yeah. Yeah, let's not go around calling women names.
And the other issue with this book is because the characters that appear are just behaviors, we don't know their backstory. We don't know anything.
Yeah.
And yes, cheating is a very complicated thing. And I'm saying this as someone who admittedly has cheated on a partner in the past. Yeah. It's not something that I'm necessarily proud of, but I'm also not going to pretend that I wasn't absolutely miserable in my relationship. And this isn't me shirking responsibility. Like, I take ownership of my decision, but it also doesn't erase the emotional abuse that I'd been experiencing, the racist comments, the sexist comments, the constant belittling, the pounding me down over and over and over again. When I tried to break up with this guy the first time, he didn't let me.
Yes.
And I didn't recognize that had happened until my successful attempt at breaking up with him. But my indiscretion with this other person, and we don't really need to say much about that other person and his toxicity. I think for a long time, like, when my ex found out about this, that was like his go-to. Oh, well, I did this and this and this, but you slept with someone else. It's like, look, I honestly don't even give a fuck anymore that I slept with someone else. Because, like, that's, well, it's not that I didn't give a fuck. It's like, how is that all you've got? Doesn't matter that I'm racist, sexist, homophobic. Doesn't matter that I'm constantly calling you a dumb cunt. Doesn't matter that I call you a dopey bitch all the time. Doesn't matter that I've insulted you and your family and your friend who committed suicide and all this other stuff. And it doesn't matter that I'm actively trying to keep you from living a life that looks anything like the life you want for yourself. You slept with someone.
Well, I also...
It's like, well, okay, I guess you win.
I also consider in certain abusive situations that you're not in a relationship, you are imprisoned.
Yeah.
And so you are just a prisoner breaking your parole.
Yeah.
It's not the same in by any means.
Yeah.
And yes, sometimes it's that you are not in a financial or safe position to leave that relationship, even though there's no affection or love or anything left there.
Yeah. Like, I was definitely still trying to figure out so many things. And it's not that I cheated on someone that I supposedly loved and I was a big liar and this and that. I was with my ex for 3.5 years. Never once in that period did either one of us say I love you.
Oh, wow.
I know, right? And it's not that either one of us was necessarily like aromantic or something. Maybe he was. I don't know. I'm definitely not. But knowing, and I'm sure like you hearing that and people who know me and know how much I love love.
You do.
Would listen to that and go, wait, what? Really?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah. And I never felt the compulsion to say it. See, this was part of the problem with our dynamic. It wasn't even just that he never told me he loved me. He actively behaved and communicated to me that I hadn't earned it yet. I
That's
hadn't
really
earned
horrible.
love. I'd barely earned respect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
gross.
But all of that fact was completely erased by the fact that I slept with someone else. That just trumps everything. It's like, yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, no.
Ugh.
Again, I think it comes to the attitude of the person who has cheated, that, like, is there just excuses being made for the behavior constantly, or is there, like, any personal growth from that experience? And, like, you have realized that, one, you knew it was a toxic relationship. You got out of that situation. With that person, it wasn't an option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Here's some more. Women are like this, men are like this. Here we go. He's just not that into you if he doesn't want to marry you. Love cures commitment phobia. Just remember this. Every man you have ever dated who said he doesn't want to get married or doesn't believe in marriage or has issues with marriage will, rest assured, someday be married. It will just never be with you.
Yeah, principled man. Don't get with one of those. Maybe he's upset that his gay friends couldn't get married. Might just not want the government to be nosy little pigs.
Yeah. Some people just don't believe in marriage.
It's also okay to be in a relationship that you don't even think might be a forever relationship. Like, if everyone's communicating and you're just like, hey, I don't really know if this is a forever relationship, but right now it's serving us in what we need.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah. A lot of people still struggle seeing validity in relationships that don't result in marriage and children and growing old together and dying together.
Yeah.
Let's read this letter. The things are really tight right now, excuse. Dear Greg, I have a boyfriend who I've been living with for 3 years. I'm about to turn 39, and I have started bringing up the idea of long-term plans, like, say, marriage. He always seems open to it, but then talks about how bad his finances are. He's an investment banker who works for himself, and he lost a lot of money in the past 2 years, a lot of clients as well, and his business really has gone down the tubes. He says he's under a lot of pressure. Am I being unreasonable to want to know where this is all going? Please let me know. Signed, Barbara. His response. Dear pressure cooker, definitely do not say a word. Keep very, very quiet. Maybe you should even think about moving into another apartment so you'll be out of the way during this oh-so-important time. Such sarcasm. Don't forget, he's the most important man in the world, and his business is failing, and that means everything to everybody. What the heck are you thinking, lady? Oh, God. Of course Of course you should know where it's all going. Do you not value yourself and your time? I feel like every time he asks a question like that, he should just follow it up with stupid. Because that's how he sounds. Certainly, 3 years invested earns you the right to know what your future holds. Any investment banker worth his salt would agree with me. Everyone lost money over the past 2 years. The stock market crashed and the economy has been in the toilet. And yet imagine, many have still managed to get married. If you are both in your late 30s and you've been dating for 3 years and he's not begging you to be his wife, you might want to take this stock tip. Mr. Dow Jones is just not that into you. He continues, there will never be a good time financially to get married, unless you're Shaq or Ray Romano. How about those references, hey? But somehow people manage. If your man is using money as an excuse not to marry you, it's your relationship that's insecure, not his bank account. What do you think about that, Mika?
Passive aggression, bad idea. Just move out and don't say anything. I think that money isn't a good excuse not to get married. Like, just if you're saying I feel too stressed out about getting my business back on track to take out like a month of my life to work, like to get married and everything, if she wants that sort of big wedding. But hey, like, can't do that right now. Would you like to? Could we get married at the registry and then in a few years we could do the big party? There's options, but it does sound like excusey, or is just too stressed to even think about long-term relationship goals.
Yeah.
In which case, like, she does deserve to know what the long-term plans for the relationship are. It doesn't need to be marriage, but if that's what she wants, like, of course he needs to say if that's likely to be on the cards or not.
Yeah. Again, there's validity here in that, well, is money really an excuse to not get married? But another example of where more information is needed.
Yeah.
How are these two people defining marriage? What sort of financial future do they see for each other and for themselves individually?
Yes.
How do their values line up? And how will this man and this idea of marriage be impacted by him trying to recover from this huge financial hit?
Yeah.
Anything to do with running a business, and as an investment banker, he's working for himself. People who haven't done that underestimate the toll that can take on an individual and on a relationship.
Yes.
Expectations need to be carefully managed. If their definition of marriage doesn't match up and they don't want the same thing, maybe you go your separate ways. I don't know. But to say like, oh, this guy and all these things he's going through are completely invalid.
Yes.
It's like, more info needed. Needed.
If they went into that relationship with the idea of marriage and kids at the start and had been discussed, but now he's like, oh, yeah, but now all this is happening. She's 39. Like, you don't if you leave things to that period of your life, you don't get time to be inconvenienced by your business plans. You can say, like, hey, like, this is too stressful. Everything we discussed is probably off the table now. But I can see why she's possibly very frustrated and whatnot if that was the plan, the clock's ticking, and she's kind of like, I've invested these 3 years with this idea and now I got to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But where this becomes more like more demanding of empathy is looking again at the title of the book and what this is supposed to be telling us. It's saying that if this guy who's struggling with all these things doesn't want to marry you, he's just not that into you.
It's very simplistic.
Yeah. It's like, this guy could be experiencing a lot of trauma right now.
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with whether or not he is into this person that he's with. Do I think these two people should stay together? I don't know. There could be a complete values clash there. Do I think it's as simple as saying like, hey, this dude's just making excuses, so he's not into you? No.
You know what I feel like now is a Smosh reading Reddit, and they're almost always going like, "We need more context."
Yes. I felt that way a lot reading this book. I'm just like, now, what would Shane Top say in this situation? No, more importantly, what would Damien Haas say in this situation?
I relate so much with Damien.
Oh, I love Damien.
Autistic with a hyper focus on like emotional development.
Yeah. Every time I see Damien pop up in a video, I'm like, okay. Mm-hmm. This will be my comfort viewing for the next month. Anyway.
Call us Smosh.
Yes. We will come on your show.
How's your improv?
What, you haven't been witness to that?
No.
What do you mean we've been doing this podcast together?
Audio improv, sure.
Mika's just not that into me.
I haven't seen you play Props, my favorite improv game.
Okay. Well, we'll put that on the list of things to do.
Yeah.
I do have to say, in the interest of full disclosure, I got engaged to Tony 5 months into a long distance relationship.
Wow.
Which, looking back, is like, what? So I've never been in the position of like waiting and wondering and going, oh, is this person gonna propose? Like I don't know what that's like. I don't know what it's like. I do know people who have been in relationships like that for like 10 or more years, and then the proposal happens, the marriage happens, and shortly after the divorce happens. Because it's like, oh, maybe there is something in your case, maybe there was something to this whole like maybe we're not right for each other if he's not proposing. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Like if they knew it was important to you and they're not doing it, then like, nah.
But also in some cases, like people just, they slide into marriage. They don't decide on it.
Yeah.
And that's something to be very conscious of as well. Yes. And if you choose not to get married, that's still totally valid. This whole relationship escalator thing it's a construct. It's a construct. You can have a beautiful relationship with someone for, I don't know, like let's say 5 years or something. At the end, it's like, look, we both want different things. You can even continue to love that person, just not be with that person.
Yeah.
Even in monogamy.
Yep.
And then say like, this was a beautiful relationship. This relationship was successful. It's not a failed relationship just because you don't die together and get, matching cemetery plots side by side.
Yeah.
Or like mixed into the same urn or cremated together. Or, you're not sprinkling your lover's ashes into your coffee.
Yeah.
And all the... Oh, stop me, Mika.
Yeah. I absolutely agree. And if you can have that attitude, you actually get to then look back on the relationship with affection and joy still, without it being ruined with the bitterness of a bad breakup.
Yes.
So to me, it's way more important to just communicate and talk to people about how you're feeling.
Yeah.
So that you can, and I mean, it's not always that simple.
Yeah.
Like, it depends on how the other person's going to receive it. And
yeah. And we have to own up to the fact as well that for some people, we want marriage because we think we're supposed to be married.
Yeah.
It's like, nah.
That it can't be a valid long-term relationship unless there's those government papers.
Yeah. Let's jump back towards the beginning of the book again. I got distracted by the shiny object that is your face.
Why, thank you. That's from the oil.
Okay. Chapter 2. He's just not that into you if he's not calling you. Men know how to use the phone.
Maybe.
Okay. I love the way this chapter just really dates the book. But anyway,
Yeah.
he starts saying, oh, sure, they say they're busy. They say that they didn't have even a moment in their insanely busy day to pick up the phone. And, yeah, it was just that crazy. Bullshit. See, this is before, like, in personal development books, you could just drop F-bombs everywhere. Words like bullshit were considered subversive and edgy. It's like, what? Oh, my pearls. With the advent of cell phones and speed dialing, it is almost impossible not to call you. Sometimes I call people from my pants pocket when I don't even mean to. We may try to make you think differently, but we men are just like you. Just like who? We like taking a break from our generally mundane day to talk to someone we like. I thought this whole thing was about how men and women were different. Not like, we're just like you. Anyway, so I'll read the letter in this one. This is about the, but he's been traveling a lot excuse. Dear Greg, I recently started dating a very nice man. He's gentle, he's affectionate, he's attentive. It recently became a long-distance thing because of his work. The first problem is, he really doesn't call me when he says he's going to. Actually, he really doesn't call me that much at all. A week will go by, and then I'll call him, and then he'll call me back 4 or 5 days later. But then when he does get me on the phone, it's all, honey, and baby, and I miss you so much, and when do I get to see you again? Is he just not that into me, or can I chalk it up to the crazy long-distance thing? Signed, Gina. His response. Hey, crazy long distance. The only distance that's bothering me is the very long distance between you and reality. Cool. In parentheses, okay, that was a little mean. Yeah, but it's setting the tone for how you're communicating with these people for the rest of the book. Example, in your second sentence you said, he's gentle, he's affectionate, he's attentive. But a few sentences later you say, he really doesn't call me when he says he's going to. Actually, he really doesn't call me much at all. That is neither affectionate nor attentive. So it's like, okay, it's not cool when someone doesn't communicate with you when they say they will, if this is a repeated pattern.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, okay?
Except for you, Mika. It's okay. You're the exception.
No,
you're not the
it's
rule.
Just ADHD.
You're the well. See, this is a thing. This would be a good opportunity if this were updated for. If this were updated for 2024. Let me put that on my to-do list. We'd have to recognize that sometimes people have ADHD or something else. Or any number of other things that can impact that stuff.
I just don't feel like I like being with people in person. And over the phone and stuff, it's fine, but it's not the same. And particularly if that person's trying to get a lot of emotional things from you over the phone, I find it really difficult.
Yeah. I personally hate talking on the phone unless it's an absolute necessity. If it's a distance thing, it makes sense that your communications are going to be over the phone. The beginning of my relationship with Tony, they were here in Brisbane, I was in Melbourne. Of course, there was going to be a lot of phone communication, right? For me, talking on the phone, aside from the scenarios I just mentioned, is really daunting. I don't like this kind of disembodied voice on the other side of some communication device. It's hard for me to focus on what they're saying. I often have to stand up and pace or do something else to feel like I can even like zero in on the conversation. When my phone rings, I get so angry.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll even like yell. I'll be like, Why are people calling me?
See, I actually, if someone needs me to ask like an actual question or something, I'm like, please just call me. Like, if you need an answer within 24 hours, call me.
Yeah.
Because the point of text communication is that I will get back to you when I feel able to.
Yes. Yeah. So the context really matters, for sure. If we were looking at this from today, it would be about, like, a lot of times it's about texting, right? It's like, I send this person these, like, these lengthy text messages, and if they even think to respond, it might be just like a, okay.
Yeah.
Which is really annoying, really aggravating.
Yeah.
But some people just have different ways of communicating in texts. Different preferences around it. So what is the solution to all of this frustration around these communication difficulties? Communicating. Which seems a little like, but agreements and expectations. If you're at the early stages of developing an interest in someone or gauging their interest in you, it might not feel like the time to be like, okay, now let's talk about when you're going to call me, when I'm going to call you, what texting platform we're going to use, what emojis we're going to use, and what these emojis mean, because we need to have this all like outlined on our shared Google Doc.
I mean, I do love that. Like, let's just see straight up front, are we going to have compatible communication?
Yeah,
But
well,
I've been told it can be intimidating.
I know I'm outing myself and my first date behaviors here by saying all this. I'm not saying everyone needs to be just like me. But we do need to be mindful of neurodiversity in these contexts as well. One of my partners really doesn't do a lot of texting. I don't send heaps of text messages to him either on like a regular basis. Like, we'll honestly go for quite extended periods where we're just not texting at all.
Yeah.
Right? And then at some point we'll have like a period where there are lots of texts, and then another period where there aren't that many. And because we're also long distance,
Okay.
yeah, it doesn't really bother me that much.
Thank
And
goodness.
we just happen to be compatible in that way.
I was going to say, thank goodness for neurodivergent dating.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
I'm similar. Like, I have very, like, I have to block my interests, which includes people. Like, I'm
Yes.
like, block of me concentrating on that, because task switching is so freaking painful. Like, even changing to think about a relationship and a person and stuff, that's a task change.
Yeah, exactly. And people don't like to think about people as tasks or objects in that way, but it's not about objectifying people. It's about recognizing that different people's brains work differently.
Yeah.
And by switching focus amongst even the very important things in your life, there are challenges associated with that cause some people to preference some ways of behavior over others.
Yeah.
It's not as simple as saying like, hey, you didn't call me more than once last week, or you didn't respond to my dick pic. Therefore, you're just not that into me. It could be like, oh, I saw the picture you sent me. And how often have you said with one of your friends, like, in my head, I replied to you.
Yeah, because I got so off track looking at the funny thing they sent me that I forgot to actually, like, reply to them to be like, lol, that was funny.
Yeah, I was busy showing it to someone else and talking about how amazing you are for knowing me so well that I just completely forgot to
Exactly.
to recognize that, like, oh, maybe I should send something back, or that dick pic you sent was just so sexy, I got distracted masturbating, and then I fell asleep.
Yeah, I super relate.
Don't send me dick pics, anyone. Like, never in my life have I received a dick pic that, like, made me go, ooh. I'm not into them.
Things that make me go,
I like duck pics.
Oh, yeah.
I send unsolicited duck pics all the time.
I did relate, though, to that guy in the letter where when he is in contact, he's really affectionate and attentive. I'm like, that sounds like me.
Yeah.
And then for 5 days, I'm just like totally distracted by life and work and whatever else people do to have to do in life.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, it's not that I am not like caring or thinking about you or anything. It's just that like to stop and start texting or something, I'm not going to get anything else done.
Yeah.
Depends if you want me to just be that.
This had me so much thinking about like my partner Mateo. He's dreamy. He is a gorgeous human being. He is such a fantastic person. He's also really freaking busy.
Yeah.
He's also neurodivergent. This is the person I was talking about before as well.
Yeah.
He's just had his third child,
Ooh.
3 under 3.
Oh.
Right?
Yeah. Okay.
And of course, being polyamorous, we already kind of went into this whole thing understanding like you've got this rich and full life you're living, I've got this rich and full life we're living. So it's not necessarily the same platform from which a typical monogamous relationship, even if it were long distance, would work. But like with Mateo, I think one of the reasons that we still work, even though we're not constantly in contact, is because I go through periods where just knowing that he's out there doing his thing and that he exists and he's still this gorgeous, gorgeous person, I go through periods where honestly that's enough for me.
Yeah. Yep.
Which might seem weird to some people. Because for some people be like, oh, but that's not a relationship. And it's like, well, it feels like one to us.
It is very much a neurodivergent experience, I would say, from what I've been told, that we can like put our relationships on hold for indefinite periods of time and still like be just as affectionate and take up where we left off when we get back together.
Yeah.
Just with the chronic illnesses I have, I really worry that people think that I don't want to be in contact or anything, but even just the emotional spoons it takes to answer a message, to think about what's going on. Your brain is so foggy when you're dealing with illness.
Yes.
It's just so hard. And then you're worried you're going to like say stuff that's wrong and you're going to ruin or hurt someone's feelings or just... I know exactly what it's like. I lose contact with people for ages, and it's not out of anything other than I'm so limited on resources.
Yeah. And I'm sure my ADHD has impacted my friendships and relationships badly in that way. And now with some of the new treatment that I'm getting and everything else, I hope to revive some of my past friendships in that regard. As feels appropriate and within my capacities.
Yeah.
But I think about, like, I'm so sloppy on dating apps and things like that. I'm just like, this really, like, cute person messaged me, I don't know how long ago. And it's like, what am I supposed to be like, hey, it's probably been a couple of months since you messaged me, but you want to hang out? It's like, how are they going to receive that information? And I'm just like, I just feel like I drop the ball all the time when it comes to dating apps, or when I think I've responded to someone and then I just haven't, or like, you know, like I jump onto field in my messages, like half of them are, this person has disconnected from you. This person is disconnected from you. I'm like, it's probably because we matched and they messaged me and then I just never responded. Yeah. I'm like, whoops.
Well, I also, as I was saying, much prefer getting to know people, talking in person. I often get misinterpreted in text.
Yeah.
So I often am like, oh, you're really nice, we're getting along, do you want to meet up for coffee or something? And then apparently that's not appropriate to like push for an in-person meetup too soon.
See,
I've scared away a lot of people.
That, I feel, is where the communication piece becomes that much more crucial on dating apps and in 2024 versus 2004 when the book was written. I now have an opportunity to state very clearly on my profile, I want to meet in person. I don't want to just text all the time.
Yeah.
So I'm telling people this is my style of dating and getting to know each other.
I'm pretty sure I said that, but it turns out that it's, at least as a man, it's seen as me pushing for sex.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm like, no, I just am more fun in person. And it's actually like a refreshing and fun experience for me instead of a draining experience like text communication is.
Yeah. So what you're saying is that not all guys are the same.
Exactly.
I know plenty of like cishet guys who have very different ways, different preferences when it comes to communication. But when these books keep saying that men are like this, women are like this, it's pressuring people to funnel themselves into this communication style that seems quote unquote normal, but can feel very unnatural for people. And what happens when you're constantly funneling people into this one very unnatural way for them of behaving, it just increases the amount of inauthenticity that has constantly been polluting humanity.
Yeah.
And what we want is more authenticity in the world.
It's a bit upsetting, I guess, if you're being told that's how a man is and you're not like that.
Yeah, it means you're not a man.
It might mean that, like, oh, you're not manly enough because you're not like this big, like, pushy leader type, or...
You're not alpha.
Yeah. It's just like, no, what if you are a bottom boy, like, whatever you want.
Or what if your idea of, like, strong masculinity is different from these notions of, like, you have to be the one who's chasing? What if you're the kind of person who really loves when a woman, when a potential partner makes that first move? What if you're the kind of person that goes, oh, yeah, you know, actually it would be really nice for my girlfriend to propose marriage to me. Like, that's okay. And we need to stop this persistent messaging that you have to be one way or another, or somehow you are deviating from what is acceptable for your gender.
Yep. Absolutely.
So all of this being said, Greg Behrendt and Liz Tuccillo, I don't know where they are at with all of these views today. I think, especially looking at Greg Behrendt's work, he's not one of these alpha bro guys posting misogynistic crap about women all over social media. And, you know, props for that. He's not one of these guys, and even just scrolling through his Instagram, he is not coming off as some, like, far-right ultra-conservative. He doesn't come off as an a-hole, which is great.
Yeah.
I'm honestly curious about, like, how his views on some of these things may have, like, where he might sit on some of these things now. Like, if he were to write an updated version of this book, like, what might it contain? We need to recognize that sometimes people do grow and change. That said, maybe he is a jerk and I just don't know. I don't know. So, Greg Behrendt, if you're out there, if you're listening, let's talk. Yeah. So, Mika, what would you say is the most important takeaway from this discussion in terms of how it can benefit people who aren't necessarily represented in this book or other books on dating, especially back in 2004?
A lot of the advice solid still. Like, if people aren't reciprocating, and you are communicating and it still doesn't seem to be that, like, move on. But also, like, communicate. Like, don't just overthink it in your head. People can't read your mind.
Yes.
There does seem to be a lot of that, like, people thinking and feeling but not expressing that towards their partner. And just differences in personality. Some people are phone people. Some people are text people. Some people are, I will see you in 2 months people.
Some people are, I forgot to think about you because I've been dealing with all sorts of mental health issues kind of person.
The Lego was very fun. Or the rocks you found at that swim. I'm now, like, so obsessed with rocks. I'm, like, busy, like, buying a rock tumbler. And
I'm busy.
Like,
I was too busy creating a life-size statue of you out of shiny rocks that I found, and I forgot to actually call you.
yeah.
Yeah.
And just seeing the differences in that everyone's so different that we have to negotiate and discuss and change and find compromises where possible, and admit when there isn't a compromise that can fit, and that sometimes is just the case.
Yes. I think my main takeaways from this discussion, especially for people from marginalized backgrounds, is now is a really good time to reset your standards for the behaviors that you will and won't accept. And reset your standards is one of the sections in the back of the book. We often talk about it in the context of boundaries.
Yeah.
What are your boundaries? What behaviors are not okay with you? And then how will you communicate that with people? Let's not make assumptions about each other.
Yes.
Let's give each other the benefit of the doubt when there is enough space for it, when it's not going to completely drain you of your own resources also. And if you are in a relationship dynamic that doesn't allow room for vulnerability, that doesn't allow room for honest communication, and that doesn't leave you feeling better rather than worse every time you interact with this person, it's a good time to reevaluate the situation and ask yourself, you know what, am I putting up with shit that I don't deserve to put up with? Is it time for me to walk the fuck away? And how am I going to do that on my terms in a way that aligns with my values, that is still as respectful as it needs to be to anyone else involved?
Yeah.
And I say as respectful as it needs to be, only because sometimes people are just jerks. And it's like, I'm tired of navigating around your needs right now. I need to get the hell away from you. So finally, dear listeners, gender is not binary. We know this. It's not as simple as saying men are this, women are this. If there are books that you're referring to that adhere strongly to those things, they need to be questioned, especially now in 2024, right? Especially where the men in these binary conversations are pitted as like the leaders, the pursuers, the action people, and women are placed firmly in the role of passive receivers, but strangely also the people who need to change in order for the men to like them more. I don't know. It's weird. Anyway, I've got 2 quotes for us today, both from the notorious RBG, Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Number 1, a gender line helps to keep women not on a pedestal, but in a cage. Says a lot about how women in books like these are often like celebrated but insulted at the same time. But anyway. Second one. It is not women's liberation It is women's and men's liberation.
Mm-hmm. Like we were saying.
Yeah. These strict gender roles have negative impacts on men as well.
So, Leslie, where can people find us?
Well, starting next year, you can find me in Vietnam. More on that another time. I'll be posting more about that on my Instagram, which is where you can find more about us. Leslie V Coaching on Instagram, Leslie. You can go to my website, leslievcoaching.com. You can book a free coaching consultation with me. We can get you primed and ready to go for 2025 and beyond. It'll be awesome. It'll be great. And the website has links to other stuff that I've been doing. So send us a message. Show us some love. Tell us what books you want us to talk about. Greg Behrendt, if you're out there, please reach out. Because I will be sending this directly to you, probably. And stay tuned for our next episode.
See ya.
Bye.